So now we've come to number 3 in this sequence, which is a chronological sequence. And number 3, which I'll come to in a second, is also written out of jeopardy. I think it's very important to establish this point. These early novels, and they're all before roughly 1750, all between 1670 and 1750. They're all written with a sense of jeopardy. And this one is called Gulliver's Travels, and it's by Jonathan Swift. But it was published very much anonymously. I mean, Swift is Irish. He's been born in Dublin. He was John Dryden's cousin, poet laureate's cousin. So he was a well-known writer, but he was a polemicist and he was a Tory. He found a lot of contemporary England disgusting. He was a vicious satirist before he wrote Gulliver's Travels, and he was in many ways quite reactionary. And he wrote this book as a kind of cry of rage against all that was going on. It was published in 1726, so it was published during the beginning of the Georgian period. The thing about Gulliver's Travels is that it has a reputation as a children's book. It's been filmed, it's been made into a cartoon, it's been used in many different ways in cinema and in kids' versions, and there are literally hundreds of them. It's been translated a lot because the story is such a charming tale, but underlying it is a much darker vision, and it's that dark vision which appeals to writers, like George Orwell, for example. George Orwell's Animal Farm owes a lot to Swift. I mean, at the simplest level, the pigs in Animal Farm pick up on the horses that appear at the end of the Winnims at the end of Gulliver's Travels, and Swift's rather bleak simplicity is something which appeals to all, I think, in many different ways. And so, what you find with this book is it starts a kind of reverberation through the English literary tradition, which is very, very powerful. And he becomes a touchstone for all kinds of subsequent writers, as we'll see as the series unfolds. And here's a very important point, I think, about this book. It was written for a market. And I think one of the things which drives this tradition, it drives the American tradition particularly, but also the English tradition, is that the writers who write for it are always writing for a readership, and they have a readership in mind. Swift knew who he was writing for. It was a much smaller group, but it was a clearly defined readership. And it was a readership which was going to be paying money for his book. And that's a thing which runs right up to the present. And it's more of an issue today with the rise of the e-book, but it is still a crucial question as to how the artist is going to be rewarded for his or her work.